Hey everyone, welcome to Recap Podcasts. In this video, we're going to explore one of the most influential books on power and strategy ever written. The 48 Laws of Power, by Robert Greene. This book has been called a modern-day Machiavelli and has been read by world leaders, celebrities, and entrepreneurs alike. Today, we'll dive into the key concepts of the book and examine how they can be applied in our own lives. So, let's get started. Law 1. Never outshine the master. The first law of power is a warning against stealing the spotlight from your superiors. In other words, it's important to be respectful and mindful of those in positions of authority over you. If you're constantly trying to outshine your boss or take credit for their work, you may find yourself on the receiving end of their wrath. Instead, focus on building a positive relationship with your superiors and finding ways to support their goals. For example, one famous example of this law in action is when Julius Caesar appointed a popular general named Pompey to govern Rome, while he was away on campaign. Rather than trying to outdo Caesar, Pompey made a conscious effort to defer to him in all matters and never sought to undermine his authority. As a result, Caesar came to trust and respect Pompey, and their relationship flourished. Law 2. Never put too much trust in friends, learn how to use enemies. This law advises us to be wary of trusting friends too much and to cultivate relationships with our enemies. According to Greene, it's important to have a healthy skepticism of those closest to us, as they may be the ones who betray us in the end. On the other hand, our enemies can be valuable allies if we know how to approach them. One example of this law in action is when Franklin D. Roosevelt made an unlikely alliance with his political rival, Joseph P. Kennedy. Despite being from different parties and having conflicting interests, the two men recognized each other's power and influence and found ways to work together. Kennedy became a key advisor to Roosevelt during World War II, and their friendship lasted until Kennedy's death. Law 3. Conceal your intentions. The third law of power is all about keeping your plans and intentions hidden from others. According to Greene, this allows you to maintain an element of surprise and keep your enemies guessing. By keeping your cards close to your chest, you can also avoid giving away too much information and protect yourself from those who might try to undermine you. A classic example of this law in action is when Sun Tzu wrote in The Art of War that all warfare is based on deception. By keeping your intentions hidden, you can create an advantage over your enemies and control the battlefield. Similarly, Steve Jobs was known for being secretive about Apple's new products, often revealing them only at the last minute to create a sense of anticipation and excitement among consumers. Law 4. Always say less than necessary. This law advises us to be cautious with our words and to avoid revealing too much information. According to Greene, the less you say, the more powerful you become. By keeping your words to a minimum, you create an aura of mystery and intrigue that can make others want to learn more about you. A great example of this law in action is when Warren Buffett was asked about his investment strategy. Rather than giving a detailed explanation, he simply said, "We try to buy businesses with good economics and good management, and if the price is right, we buy." By saying less than necessary, Buffett created an air of mystery around his investment strategy, which only increased his reputation as a successful investor. However, the power of silence is not just about being mysterious. It's also about being strategic. By not revealing your hand too soon, you can gain an advantage in negotiations and other interactions. People who talk too much often reveal their weaknesses or their intentions, which can be used against them. By being careful with your words, you can keep others guessing and maintain the upper hand. Law 5. So much depends on reputation. Guard it with your life. The fifth law of power stresses the importance of reputation and the need to protect it at all costs. Greene writes that a good reputation is one of the most valuable assets you can possess, and that it's important to always be aware of how others perceive you. By taking steps to build and maintain your reputation, you can increase your power and influence in the world. An example of this law in action is when Coca-Cola famously changed its recipe in the 1980s. The company's decision was met with backlash from consumers, who felt that the new formula didn't taste as good as the original. In response, Coca-Cola quickly reverted back to its old recipe and apologized for the mistake, preserving its reputation as a company that values its customers. Law 6: Court attention at all costs. The sixth law of power is all about attracting attention and creating a memorable impression. Green writes that in a world where attention is scarce, those who can command it have a distinct advantage. By using bold and attention-grabbing tactics, you can increase your visibility and power. A good example of this law in action is when Madonna first burst onto the music scene in the 1980s. With her provocative image and catchy songs, she quickly became one of the most talked-about performers of her time. By courting attention and controversy, Madonna was able to build a huge fan base and establish herself as a pop culture icon. Law 7: Get others to do the work for you, but always take the credit. The seventh law of power is all about delegation and taking credit for the work of others. Green writes that by persuading others to work for you and then taking credit for their achievements, you can increase your own power and status. However, it's important to be subtle and not take credit in a way that makes your subordinates feel undervalued. A good example of this law in action is when Steve Jobs was the CEO of Apple. He was known for being a charismatic leader who inspired his employees to work long hours and strive for excellence. However, Jobs was also known for taking credit for the work of others and presenting their achievements as his own. While this behavior may not have been popular with his subordinates, it helped him to maintain his position of power at the top of the company. Law 8: Make other people come to you, use bait if necessary. The eighth law of power emphasizes the importance of being able to attract others to you, rather than constantly chasing after them. Green writes that by creating a sense of mystery and allure around yourself, you can increase your power and make others come to you. A good example of this law in action is when the famous writer J.D. Salinger withdrew from public life after the success of his novel, The Catcher in the Rye. By becoming reclusive and mysterious, Salinger created a sense of intrigue around himself that only served to increase his popularity and influence. Law 9: Win through your actions, never through argument. The ninth law of power stresses the importance of action over words. Green writes that it's more powerful to achieve your goals through decisive action than through argument or negotiation. By demonstrating your competence and strength through your actions, you can increase your power and influence in the world. A good example of this law in action is when the civil rights leader Martin Luther King Jr. led the Montgomery bus boycott in 1955. Rather than trying to argue his case in court, King and his supporters took action by refusing to ride the buses, which ultimately led to the desegregation of public transportation in Montgomery. By winning through his actions, King demonstrated his strength and leadership and helped to change the course of history. Law 10: Infection. Avoid the unhappy and the unlucky. The 10th law of power is all about avoiding negative and toxic people. Green writes that surrounding yourself with unhappy or unlucky people can bring you down and diminish your own power and success. Conversely, being around happy and successful people can inspire you and increase your own power and success. A good example of this law in action is when the entrepreneur and investor Warren Buffett advises people to associate with those who are better than themselves. By surrounding himself with successful and intelligent people, Buffett has been able to increase his own knowledge and success. Similarly, by avoiding negative and toxic people, Buffett has been able to maintain a positive and productive mindset, which has helped him to achieve his goals. Conclusion. And there you have it. A brief overview of some of the key laws of power as outlined in Robert Greene's book, The 48 Laws of Power. While some of these laws may seem Machiavellian or even unethical, they offer valuable insights into how power operates in our society. By understanding these laws and learning how to apply them, we can increase our own power and influence in the world. Thanks for watching. And be sure to subscribe to Recap Podcasts for more videos like this.